Hello and welcome along to the VMTV Rugby Pod. Alan Quinlan is back alongside me in studio. Alan, I've seen you all over the place this week. Great to have you in our company, of course.
It was a good week, Stuart.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't. It's not that often that Munster win the league fixture against Leinster. It hasn't happened. I think the last time was 2018. I know there was a Rainbow Cup fixture and obviously a URC semi-final. But yeah, I think it was great. It was a good result for Munster.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that straight away. 31-14, Munster-Leinster in Croke Park. An occasion everyone wants in the league. It certainly delivered. Munster under new boss at the helm. They were super. Defensively, absolutely brilliant. Stopped Leinster all over the track. And Crowley, let's face it, we won't individualise, but we will. Got the best out of the 10 battle, didn't he?
Yeah, I think it was. Obviously, it was not a shock result. Yeah, it probably was a shock result. Let's be honest about it. You're neutral, so was it a shock result to you?
I didn't expect the way it would
I don't think
out.
people expect it. Listen, you always talk about, when you play Leinster, any team plays Leinster, like sometimes you play them when they're, some of their internationals are away and they've a mix and match of few internationals and then the players who are around the club all the time. Very good squad. We always talk about the depth in our squad, but so it was surprising the manner, probably the scoreline. You always go there and hope, and whether it's in the Aviva, the RDS, or now most recent years it's Croke Park. So there's always hope and a bit of belief, and I said that last week, that players have to have that belief. You can't kind of go, well, the script is Leinster win here. They usually do against most teams. I think the very good performance the week before against the Sharks, very dominant one. Leinster or Munster had a really good win against Edinburgh, but it wasn't the best performance, and there was a bit of fortune there, and Edinburgh's discipline was poor. It seems like, and I'm sensing even from some online comments that I see sometimes that I'm being harsh and hard on Munster. It's probably still the player kind of view that you try not to get too far ahead, and you have to deal in reality and analyse a game and all that kind of stuff. So,
and you probably think their ceiling is pretty high.
Well, I think obviously at the start of the season, I think Munster have a good squad. They were shrewd in some of the players they brought in. Clayton McMillan gives, they gave most of last season without a head coach. And a couple of players coming back from injuries. We were waiting on a Dogba to come back. Roman Salano may come back. Michael Mill and Lee Barn came down at the end of last season. Dan Kelly's been a good signing. Good players in the outside backs, an area they kind of struggled before. They've loads of options.
Tom Farrell called up to the Ireland squad.
Yeah, Dermot Kilgallen's coming back. So on paper, if you kind of pick the strongest team, it's a good side, and the hope is Ollie Jaeger is fit, and there's a lot of hope and a lot of that talk that we analysed at the start. But like if they get their squad and get players available, they could do well, and obviously get a boost from the coach and maybe a bit of stability there, and the individual coaches then as well, which they've done well in the last few years, of course. So they went to Croke Park, I think, on the back of 3 wins. And as I said, maybe I'm being a little bit harsh or negative on them, but I didn't think they played that well against Cardiff. I didn't think they played it well against Edinburgh. On the balance of that, and when you probably look at it, and the argument people could say to me is, well, that's a very strong Edinburgh side, which it is. They've, I think, was it 4 or 5, 4 anyway, British and Irish Lions who were involved in the summer tour, and then a lot of internationals. So on paper, they were a very strong side. They won the end of last February down in Cork. Munster, the positives out of that, they dug in, they found a way to get the result, and that was brilliant. So I didn't see that level of intensity, that prolonged level over 80 minutes, which they produce. Heard a lot of players and coaches talk after the game in different interviews about sticking to the game plan, and they made a kind of a promise to themselves, and they had a clear plan. And that worked, and they found space in behind Leinster. Tom Farrell's kick is a perfect example of that. Some crossfield kicks from Crowley. They had less possession, less territory, but they struck and scored when the intercept try is opportunistic, isn't it, from Ethan Coughlin? It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant from him. But there was a couple of swings there that and sometimes you talk about luck. Did they get lucky? You hear this term, create your own luck. And you do create your own luck by chasing that kick that you think is not worth chasing sometimes, by kind of getting up off the ground that quicker, focusing, jumping back into place where you could be a defender where possibly there was a gap 3 seconds before that. So you do kind of create your own luck by work rate and intensity and all that kind of stuff. So that was very high and it was very
But
impressive.
I'm guessing you create your own momentum by,
of course,
20, 30 tackles in a row, tag burn, getting about
and it's not,
umpteen turnovers.
It's not just doggedness then in the sense of, we're going to kick the ball up in the air and be really negative. Munster actually at times looked like they 9 or 10 line breaks. They looked dangerous every time Tacker Abrahams got the ball, or Nankerville when he came on. Andrew Smith very unlucky with the hamstring injury, but they looked dangerous. They looked cohesive. They looked like they were finding some space and there was opportunities there. So it was a really good performance. I think that the highlight and the reality of it is that they brought incredible intensity. Like, their defensive work was phenomenal. I think the top 13.
When was the last time you saw a performance like that, off the top of your head? Glasgow, maybe, after the sad passing of Axel?
Yeah, and I hope it's not a case of, you have to switch on and off and you see one of these every couple of years. I think it's very hard and it'll be very difficult for Munster to go out and have the same intensity. It's a different atmosphere, different team. I think a lot of these players would be sick of losing to Leinster, would have been frustrated with the Irish squad selection last week. And you try and find little nuggets that will give you a little bit of a lift and a boost, and that happened. So I think, to get that intensity up for that level of time, and you usually see those type performances or games from teams in quarterfinals or semi-finals when they're the underdog. Do you know what I mean? They shock the opposition, and no, they were brilliant. I think, and it wasn't just based on that fire and determination. I think they were very shrewd in what they did, and they executed superbly, and they were brave as well. Lots of offloads, and then of course you're talking about just not just defensively being strong, but forcing turnovers. Tyburn was immense. There was another number of players who got turnovers, slowed breakdowns down, counter-rucked to take a second or two off that presentation for Gibson Park, who's exceptional at sweeping the ball away. So they made it really difficult, and then Leinster made a lot of mistakes. A lot of that was down to the pressure Munster were putting on them. They started forcing things a little bit. So they can be very pleased, and I think, a lot of the papers, you get the reports on Sunday, Monday, and then you start delving into a little bit more bigger picture stuff, and a lot of the stuff I'm seeing now is this a bit of a line in the sand? Can it be a line in the sand for Munster? So you've got to try and use it because your confidence will be high. But there's a little bit of pressure this week because they need to back it up, and I think they just need to try and get a win and a result on Saturday. There's no way you can get that same level of fire and brimstone all the way through the game. Maybe you can, I don't know. But they look fit as well, Stuart, and that's something that a lot of the players, I watched the little videos and I've seen some clips of players talking about pre-season was tough for them. And I think we've probably...
Kate McMillan always says that with a smile and twinkle in his eye.
There's probably 2 or 3 seasons back, and in the last number of seasons, you hear things about there's a week off and the pre-season wasn't long enough. One season it was too long, then it was too short, and just a little bit of confusion about what's right. Who knows? I'm not an SSC coach. Dogging players for 4 or 5 weeks, killing them, players will break down, but getting the balance of having some tough character building sessions, and they seem to have that, and they look in good shape. Can they grow and develop from that? Well, that's the hope, because even you go into the game without Craig Casey, you think he's a real kind of important cog, and Ethan Coughlin did really well. All the forwards stepped up, and you have a 37-year-old prop in John Ryan who's under pressure, and that Munster scrum was under pressure, so you're kind of a little bit bare in that area going into that game. But Leinster looked lethargic a little bit at times and looked a little bit flat-footed, but Munster created that kind of chaos around defensively, and their line speed was superb, and they were able to withstand that pressure.
In the opposite point of view, Leo Collins said it is a wake-up call. 3 defeats in 4. I'd say they would have been scratching their heads because there was a lot of one-out runners, as far as I could see. Didn't seem to have too much in the gears 3 to 5. A case, yes, Munster were so quick up defending, but very acutely with that. Did you expect Leinster to go to a different playbook and finally break Munster down at some stage? It just didn't seem to be there on.
No, it wasn't. And I think, look, Munster were very shrewd in the way they weren't just shooting out of the lines in 1s and 2s and leaving little gaps in the defensive line. They also had lots of players on their feet, which obviously means you've plenty of bodies across the field, and they connected very well in their when they had to scramble a few times, or if they went behind the gain line. So I just think they got it right, consistently got it right. And then, there was probably a couple of periods in the game where they got into high multi-phase around the 60th minute, and then, there's either a turnover or the intercept happened, and just on the back of just when you think they're hanging on a little bit here, Munster come up with something. Good decisions from the players individually. Their discipline was, even though they gave away 15 penalties, it's high number when you're like at that level. There was some at scrums, there was some around the breakdown, but by and large they didn't panic and jump in and give easy access to Leinster at times. But look, they were able to hang on, and I think when you it's not the norm either, Stuart, that Leinster are the ones chasing. They're usually the ones you're chasing. They usually get tries and build momentum, and whoever plays them is kind of trying to chase back in the game. So they can sit back and be compact a lot at times like that. But they were a little bit naive, and I think they possibly. I'm sure they, as regards prep and all that during the week, they're very mindful of. They're playing a kind of a wounded animal in a sense that they know Munster would have brought a lot of kind of emotion with them to the fixture, but maybe because they've handled it pretty well in the last number of years for a long period now in the league fixture, that maybe there was an expectation that this would happen and they'd click into gear, and obviously when they get the early try, there's a sense that this is the way it's going to be, and Munster will stay in the fight and they'll get a score or two here, but ultimately Leinster will kick on, and they were outstanding and they deserve a lot of credit for it.
New Zealand, Ireland and Chicago on Virgin Media is 9 days away. We must get into it. Who's your starting fly half and why? It seems to be Jack Crowley now has gone above Sam Prendergast, certainly in the wider public's and the media's and probably the fans' view. But Andy Farrell will not be too interested in what we think, I suspect. Which way do you see him going? He's always picked his right calls, and that's why he's had such a great coaching career so far.
Rivalry and the way this story is played out last year, you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't, because everyone has an online presence now, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. But
tens have always been talked about for years.
They have.
I know this has probably gone too far.
Nasty at times, and the online stuff, and even the abuse that Sam Prendergast has got at times, and maybe Jack Crowley has got some as well, but it's affected both players in a sense of their game. I said this last November, and it's my own opinion that I didn't think it was the right thing to do to push Sam Prendergast in like that. The Irish selectors, they obviously know. I would say they probably know more than me, but just my hunch was...
Not sure they do, Al. No one knows more than you.
Absolutely not. It was my hunch that it was rushed a little bit, and I know he's an exceptional talent, and I think it affected Jack Crowley a little bit as well. And then you had this online debate the whole time, and then a little bit of nastiness, obviously, and then you have Six Nations. Both of them had an up and down. Sam Prendergast obviously gets player of the match in Scotland, and then Crowley comes in for the Italian match. He probably didn't have his best game. I think the team weren't functioning as well, the Irish team, even though they won 4, didn't they, in the tournament. But I think Jack Crowley has to start now. Well, if you're basing on form, and look, I've always believed that Jack Crowley was an outstanding player. I think
you have always said
a couple of deficiencies in everybody's game, no matter who you are, and I think maybe a little bit of control, some decision making. with Jack has let him down a little bit at times. Staying in the structure and the plan, which you need your fly half to do, you need them to run that. And you know, probably the advantage people talk about and the difference of the two players is maybe Sam Prendergast's hands are slicker and his passing game is better, and maybe some parts of his kicking game he has more distance. But for me, Jack
Crowley looks leaner now and quicker, doesn't
yeah,
he?
yeah, and I think he's from what I've heard, and again, it's not a secret that you know he didn't really take a pre-season.
Yeah, he worked with an S&C and did
trying to get
couple of months'
sharper
work.
and fitter and stronger and stuff like that. He looks very lean and looks very in great shape, and his biggest, well, not his biggest strength, but Jack Crowley's a very physical 10, and he's very strong. He can run into contact. He can defend very strongly, and that's the point of difference between the two. And yeah, I think Crowley was outstanding on Saturday. And again, you'd expect that Sam Prendergast would have more of an armchair ride with the forward pack he had, and that we expect that they'll probably win the game and be dominant. And Crowley was outstanding. I think he was very dominant in a sense of he looked confident. He looked like he was really enjoying it. A lot of intensity there, and they would have been tired after all the defending and stuff, but he looked very, very sharp. You know, the penalty even to in the second half there, that, you know what, it sounds innocuous, but just to strike at a penalty on the 10-yard line, it was a difficult enough kick. And he's had...
Because the wind was pretty strong.
He's had some inconsistencies, but it was just like, it was one of those ones where just look at the player and I just think he looks confident. The strike was superb, and it just summed up his day maybe. Is he going to have a perfect day every time with the kicking tee? No, but I think... He just had a really, really assured performance. I like the fact he was very calm and controlled afterwards. He wasn't, I told you so, and you know, not that the player would do that, but I
don't think either of tens would have done that.
And I just think he was very calm, and he was very appreciative of the occasion, the event, and obviously the win, and talking about his players. So he's only 25, Sam Prendergast 22. They're still very young, but on the basis of what we saw at the weekend, and I probably would have been going for Sam Prendergast for Jack Crowley anyway, because of that physical. We still have a concern about Sam Prendergast's defensive work, and it's unforgiving at that level. And I think you're playing.
Do you think it's getting slightly better or not?
Well, I'm sure he's working on it. It's not that he's running out of the way, and I think it's technically he needs to be better. He's a very tall guy. He's lean, but he's actually, from what we hear, is quite strong. And
well, to be fair to him, he still takes to the line. You saw it the weekend.
Yeah. And but look, Jack Crowley, I think, was superb, and I think that kind of put that thing to bed. And as going back to the thing last November, I think it kind of hampered. But that's the chance coaches take. You know, if Sam Prendergast had this exceptional run all the way through, which is unlikely for any young player making their international debut, maybe it would have benefited Jack Crowley that he was said, well, I have to get better and better and better. He's had the right reaction, and I think, you know, even I saw him against Saracens last January. He was brilliant down at Home Park, and that was a time that you could easily drop your head a little bit, you know, post Christmas. He didn't play the Leinster game, so he's I think he's kind of propelled himself into that starting position.
Other talking points, I know we're going to Ireland here, but that does seem to be the main headline. Tom Farrell in the squad and Jimmy O'Brien. Unfortunately, Mac Hansen misses out through injury. Plenty of training to do in Chicago, but that Irish back three, which way would your eyes focus to that starting 11, 14 and 15 positions?
Well, I think James Lowe... he starts probably, and some of the Leinster players start not because they played well or they got a match under their belt. I think they're undercooked, and that's a worry for me. I think obviously bringing the team out to Chicago this week is hopefully going to scrape off a bit of rust, as the fella says, and they'll probably have a heavy week this week.
And that's worked in Portugal before Six Nations.
Yeah, it is, and they probably have a good bit of work to do. It's difficult for Andy Farrell in the sense that he's grabbing a group of guys now for a week and a half, essentially, and trying to get ready for a test against a team who are battle-hardened after a rugby championship, and who it's coming to the end of their season, so there's no ring rustiness there. Sometimes when the Southern Hemisphere teams lose and look, sometimes you think that maybe there's a bit of fatigue there and they want the season over and all that. People have different perspectives on it, but they'll be battle hardened and they'll be sharp and they'll be very assured of their kind of game plan and stuff. So Ireland have got to get up and running, learn quickly, get up to speed quickly, and the worry is, there's players going to play next week that have one game played, and will it be enough? Obviously, I've seen international players before come back, maybe one or two at a time, and look fine. But there's going to be a good group of players who start next week that
7 to 10
match practice and match fitness thing will be undercooked. But who knows? They're all top class internationals. They've been there before, so maybe they'll find a way. And it's a tough opener for Ireland. So yeah, it's not ideal in a sense that who knows? Maybe this will be a bit of a wake up call for some of those players that what happened at the weekend, because I listened to Jamison Gibson Park and he spoke about they got a kick up the backside and they need to learn from it.
John Fogarty said that yesterday as well.
Yeah, so I think they probably would have been in shock afterwards. So maybe they'll react here and because if you have a bad performance against New Zealand, then there's a little bit more negativity and there's a kind of a narrative following this team anyway now that we need changes, and there's a little bit of that talk and more people from the other provinces, but look, that's a whole different story. I think there's
France have 10 debutants in their squad for the autumn, but they have a lot more players to pick from.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and I think, look, spoke about this a lot last week about, who's not in the squad that should be in the squad. Of course, there's some players that you could say, like Ulster had a fantastic win in the Sharks. You could argue that some of
Don't burst my bubble, we're getting there.
Yeah,
I know
that, but they could argue and say, well, we played great at the weekend as well, and one or two more of us should be in the squad. But look, it'll take a little bit of time. You start beating each other up in provincial matches, and they're like mini trials, they're like Irish trials. They do count. And it doesn't happen consistently enough, because that's why Leinster are the dominant force and have been. I've always said this. It'd be much better it'd be great if Connacht, Ulster and Munster all got better and closed that gap a little bit. We don't want Leinster to get worse, because that's not good for the Irish team. We want the other provinces to get better and challenge them and go toe to toe with them and cause them problems, and that will probably bring out the best in them as well. So, the result in the weekend is definitely a line in the sand for Munster, and can they cross that line now and have that as a good standard for them and improve, because there is optimism now. As I said, I was probably a little bit negative on them the previous 2 weeks, but I was just, from what I saw, I didn't think they played great. What I saw on the weekend, they played brilliantly, and they deserve credit for that.
Going to South Africa now. Last Saturday, Ulster beating the Sharks. What did they have? 17 Springboks in the 23. Just something's not right in Durban with the Sharks at the moment. But Ulster, 4 from 4. Nathan Doak, Jack Murphy, Werner Koch, McCloskey, they're all, and I haven't even mentioned the pack. And actually, the scrum of the line-out didn't function, and Ulster still won away from home. Like, those coaches must, a box ticked plus the rest. That's super couple of weeks for Ulster.
Absolutely.
The belief there must be through the roof, Al.
Yeah, I think it's, again, for them this week is if they can come away. They play the Lions this Saturday, so if they can come away with 2 wins in South Africa, it's a phenomenal start to the season for them. Inconsistency is the word that has probably dogged this team even before Richie Murphy's time. And again, if they get their best players in the field, they've a very good side. I think Augustus is a very good addition. I think Angus Bell, when he comes in, will be another great player. I think the Sharks they're strange, aren't they? And let's be honest about it. They're a team people can go after at times, and they get disjointed. And like, when you look at the squad of players, it's just it's unbelievable. It's like as if they go to sleep, wake up and panic, and then they can blow a team away for 5 minutes, and then they knock the kick the kick off on or something, and then they give away a penalty, and you score again against them, and
They don't go to sleep playing for South Africa, playing for the Springboks.
It's amazing, and look, maybe that is something to do with it. Who knows? But you don't want to take away from Ulster's performance, because I thought it's a tough place to go and play, and they fronted up. I think they've had issues before in South Africa, and they've, like you said it there, their scrum and their line-out, their scrum was under huge pressure, which it's always going to be, and the line-out was disjointed at times, but their counter-attack was superb, and their ability to keep the ball alive and be brave with the ball and find space, you know.
Tom Stewart's try started as 22, and then he finished it off.
Incredible, and Werner Koch looked like a man, like it was the World Cup final for him. That he wanted to just
He's a bundle of energy.
He just wanted to beat his whole team, and it's amazing. He was brilliant, full of energy, and that was kind of epitomised throughout the team. They were superb at the breakdown. Nick Timoney got some great turnovers. I thought Harry Sheridan really fronted up as well. Right across the board, they really got stuck in. And one man you could argue and say, right, okay, came on the scene a couple of years ago with incredible kind of excitement and promise around him, was Nathan Doak, and he stuttered, flattered to deceive at times, had some very good performances.
Moved to 10 for a bit, now he's back to the day job of 9.
I think he started the season superbly, so he could have an argument to say, well, I should be in an Irish squad, you know. So those stories can start to develop and start when you know,
when you
the
keep
other
winning.
provinces start winning matches, and they gather the attention of the selectors, and so I think he was superb. So a lot of credit to them. Jack Murphy, even a young kid, he looks very mature for his age, and Stockdale is someone who he started the season very well, and I think he had a really good season last year, and unfortunate injury over the summer, but you know, he's in an Irish squad, and we know his ability. So yeah, I think Richie Murphy, look, I feel for him, because it's been up and down so much, and so many disappointing results, and some good results and then bad results. Again, for Ulster, it's kind of setting a really good standard, and trying to keep that level, and be tough to beat, tough to play against. Easier said than done. But so far, so good for Ulster. They've been very impressive.
On the opposite end, not quite happening for the Green Machine, and couple of defeats under Stuart Lancaster.
Yeah, I think last Friday night it's a difficult one to take. I think although you're playing against a Bulls side that are incredibly powerful and physical, it wasn't a full strength Bulls team. I think Ackerman made a lot of changes from the week before.
Have you seen enough from the last month of Connacht to think they're on the right path, or do you not know?
We haven't seen enough. We've seen the first game against Benetton, which I liked a bit of steel they showed against a strong. It was a strong team, because most of the Italian internationals, the really good internationals, were playing the starters. Some really good players in that Benetton side, a couple of overseas players. So that was never going to be an easy fixture, but I thought they managed that game well. They didn't panic. They got a bonus point win, and defensively they were strong. And we spoke a lot about that last year, and Stuart Lancaster spoke about this year coming in. You know, there's no point in scoring 5 tries if you're going to concede 6. I'm not saying that happened, so don't get me wrong, but I think there was so many games last year that were very close that Connacht lost.
Well, you're right, though. They conceded so many tries,
soft scores, and they're a very ambitious side. They play a brilliant brand of rugby, I think, with Josh Ioane at 10. I think he's very exciting. I think they've got talent right across that back line. For Bundy Aki, Finlay Bealham and Mac Hansen coming back, it's a lot to expect for you to go out and hit the ground running. They didn't. Bealham or Aki were very quiet. I think Mac Hansen grew into the game and started to have some moments and looked very dangerous. He gets the try at the end that could win them the game. The conversion is missed, obviously, but I think they had a lot of possession, a lot of territory in that first half, and didn't capitalise on it. And Josh Murphy is sent off. I think it's a crazy red card, a 20-minute red card, We probably don't have enough time to get into it all, but it was a crazy decision. I think at most it was a penalty. At most it was a yellow card, but for me it would have been.
Why do you feel they got it so wrong?
Because Holly Davidson said to him when he went to the TMO, so there's an allegation of grabbing in the groin area. We could see the reaction from Josh Murphy in live play. He kind of swings down with his hand. He clips off the back of his head and he reacts. He's not allowed to do that, obviously. It's low end, to be honest. Not a high degree of danger. You know, that's the kind of term they use. So it's for me, it's a low end scenario. Mike Adamson talks to Holly Davidson. They look at it as an allegation. He goes to the TMO, and then Hawkeye went down on him. So I think that can zoom in different, maybe give some more angles. I'm not sure if they would have got it because there was players blocking it. So I think it was a difficult one for them to take, and for Josh Murphy, I think he was a loss because he's a very physical, aggressive player, and he reacts like that because something happened there. So I think it was a harsh penalty, and it shouldn't have been, or a harsh red card. I think it might have affected him a little bit, deflated him a little bit. So even though they hung on in there, you know, if there were 15 players, maybe they would have been the ones getting a couple of scores. So Villiers Leroux and Sebastian de Klerk were outstanding. They and Kane Moody, and they struck counter attacked a couple of times and got long distance tries, and that kind of killed. There's 3 kind of long distance tries, and I think could have been defended better in that game. And de Klerk got 2 of them. Villiers Leroux got the other one. I just think they would have been frustrated by that. A lot of possession, a lot of territory, and they just couldn't kind of. Of course, they had a surge at the end, and Sean Naughton, he gets 2 cracks at the conversion from the touchline. Difficult scenario for him, difficult conversion, and I think it's a real frustrating one for him, I would say, because that was a game that
was there for the taking.
It was there for the taking. I'm not sure I could say they deserved to win because I think they made a good few mistakes and were kind of predictable at times in their attack in the first half, and then made some mistakes defensively and got punished.
Alan, great to have you in. Plenty of ERC this weekend to enjoy, and we're back with the Rugby and Virgin Media in Chicago on the 1st November, but we'll review that and look ahead to it next Thursday afternoon. Thanks as always.
Cheers. Thanks, Stuart.